Okay, here we go. This is my first ever live stream, so I'm expecting a lot of things to go a little bit wonky maybe at some stage. So I'm relying on you guys, the viewers, just to pinpoint anything that sounds a bit off. If it's the audio, if it's the focus on the web browser that I'm using for FPL. If something's just not right, just pop something into the comments, let me know, and I'll see if I can fix it. This is really just a trial stream to see if it's something I can do for the season as opposed to the regular vids that I did for the last couple of seasons. So instead of having to upload vids, I could do something live like this, closer to the deadline, and hopefully have more up-to-date information for you guys. So first, maybe I should probably talk about last season, because I haven't really been on YouTube for maybe the last 6 months of the season. Now, I did update my team quite regularly on Twitter. My Twitter handle is just above me there at FPL Crypto. So I did inform everybody of my transfers in plenty of time before deadline. And if you look through my timeline on Twitter, you could see I was quite honest and open about my decision making and how I came to any captaincy choices or transfers throughout the season. So I'm going to try my very best to stay on YouTube and do one of these live streams every week in and around the deadline day. And hopefully that way you guys can follow along with me. And usually what I do, the videos that I do are Watchlist driven. So the Watchlist is a feature that's on the FPL site, and when you go into the transfer section, you'll notice that there is a little tab on the right hand side and it says Watchlist. So it allows you just to add and remove players that you're keeping your eye on statistics wise, for form, for many reasons, the eye test, players that you're pinpointing for a transfer maybe in future game weeks. And it's a free feature, it's part of the game. A lot of people don't use it at all, which is surprising to me. I've historically always used the watch list, and I usually pull my transfers from the watch list eventually. Now, last season was one of the seasons where I decided to take it slower, and I only took 6 hits, -4s all season, and I kind of put that success story down to the watch list and the fact that I was narrowing my choices every week and playing the patient game. So I'm going to go again with it this year, and I'm going to start building a watch list for game weeks 1 to 5. Now, saying that, there's so much time left. Saturday 12th September is the game week 1 deadline. And obviously, the transfer window is open right up until game week 4, I think. So there's going to be a lot of chopping and changing in teams, players coming in, players moving on. And we just got to roll with the punches. We can maybe do another one of these vids next week when we have more of an idea of what players are going to be in the mix for starting places coming into game week 1. For example, Rodrigo apparently signed for Leeds United tonight from Valencia. He's not even in the game at the moment. There's talk of the likes of Ben Chilwell going to Chelsea, and who knows, Jadon Sancho might end up in Man United too. So there's a lot to do. Lionel Messi, how can I not even mention him yet? Because there's a few clubs he can probably go to if he's released by Barcelona, if they reluctantly release him. One of those clubs is definitely Man City, because they've got money in the coffers. So lots to keep an eye on, lots to consider going forward. For the moment, I'm going to just launch into the watch list, and I'm going to just do an alphabetical order of teams. So start with Arsenal. And look, I'm only going to look at the first 5 game weeks, because anything more than that is just going to confuse the matter. Like, who are the players that we're going to be looking at potentially in our teams from game weeks 1 to 5? And I think the number one target that we're all looking at is Aubameyang. Basically, proven FPLer throughout the seasons. He has been repositioned into midfield now. obviously a price hike. Excuse me, I can't even speak. Price hike with that to 12 million. So he is a little bit more expensive than last season. But then you have to remember that he is going to get an extra point for a goal and a point for clean sheets going forward. So he's angled to score better than previous seasons based purely on the FPL point scoring system. So he really does appeal to me. I'm going to add him to my watch list. Now, if you see on the left, I actually have a draft made already. And let's just not muck about here. I'm going to put Aubameyang straight into my team because I feel like for game weeks 1 to 2, let me go back into that. The fixtures, Fulham away and West Ham home. Fulham away, promoted side. A lot of unknowns there, of course, but the two green fixtures for FDR for game weeks 1 and 2 are really appealing for Aubameyang, and that 12 million price point is a great pivot into maybe a Manchester United or Man City asset in game week 3 because Arsenal play Liverpool away that week. So I'm going to add in, he's on the watch list already, so I'm just going to add him to my team. Add player, there we go. So first player in on my team. Now, in terms of defense, I just can't trust Arsenal defensively yet. I mean, Arteta is tightening them up at the back. There are a couple of new signings coming in. That guy Saliba, good things talked about him. But look, I don't know. The only player I could potentially add into the watch list is Kieran Tierney at 5.5 because I feel like he will start on the left. And at 5.5 million, now he was injured most of last season, so he never really got a taste of what he's like. He was previously with Celtic before that, so I'm going to add him in and monitor him for a couple of game weeks. He is a potential transfer. Again, clean sheets are the bread and butter, and I just don't see them coming from Arsenal for the opening game weeks. Bellerin there has a price drop to 5 million. In seasons gone by, he's been great value. And look, he had a bad season last year, and his game time has been down. So there's a reason why he's 5 million. He's not an assured starter, but he does have a lot of attacking threat. I'm just not going to put him on the watch list because there's no point overbearing Arsenal defensive assets on the watch list when I'm really probably not going to choose any of them. Willian then, a new signing, 8 million. I don't know. I don't know about that price. I mean, he had a great ending to his Chelsea career where he was really just playing for a move to another club or contract renewal. The former happened anyway, and he's at Arsenal now. Pepe is down to 8 million, which is fair enough. He didn't hit the ground running in the Premier League last season, so can't have too many complaints about that. And up front then, there's just that rotation problem with Lacazette and Nketiah. Like, Nketiah will start a game, Lacazette might start the next, so I'm really not interested going there. So I've only added 2 players from Arsenal onto the watch list. I'm going to move swiftly on to Villa, and I'm not going to be spending too much time with Villa, to be honest, because they have a blank game week 1, and that really rules a lot of their players out, other than the goalkeeper situation that I'm keeping an eye on. So they have potentially 2 4 million goalkeepers. Nyland might start, Steer might. It's keep an eye on preseason to figure out what's going to happen there. But I'm going to add Nyland into my team as my 4 million. He's going to want to watch this first, and I'm going to add him into my team as my 4 million backup goalkeeper, because there is potential that he'll start game week 2 onwards. Now, obviously very early, as we all know, so one to keep an eye on for sure. Defensively, there's a lot of 4.5 million options, but clean sheets, again, bread and butter. Not going to go near Aston Villa early on. And another player I'll probably have to add in is Grealish. There's no move coming yet for him. He's still with Villa. Don't know if it's going to materialise. Still early days in the transfer window. A lot more game weeks to pass before we know exactly where he's going to stay. Surprised he wasn't called up to the England squad earlier today. I think he proved his worth last season. 8 goals, 7 assists. I'll add him to the watch list. 7 million is a decent price point if he hits form. He's a assured starter, and fixtures aren't great for starting off for the first while for Villa. But look, game week 9 onwards, there's a nice run there. So may as well add Grealish to the watch list. He is their best player by a mile. He's their captain, and he's definitely one to look at. I owned him a few times last season too. He didn't let me down. So Brighton next. Brighton's probably going to be short and sweet. I think they've defensively got a difficult start. So it rules out the likes of Dunk and the usual boys. I think Montoya left today. He signed for Sociedad or something. That's why there's a little warning flag beside him. Ryan is a 4.5 million. Is probably your best 4.5 goalkeeper because he's going to start every game. I'd just be worried about Brighton in terms of the defence. Lamptey got a price hike from 4 to 4.5 this season. Disappointing to see that because he looked like a real potential 4 million enabler. No, I really, maybe I'm going to add in, maybe Trossard. I'll put in Trossard at 6 million. I'm hesitant to add in Lallana because I don't know where he's going to slot into the team yet. He's 6.5 as well, which is a lot for a Brighton attacker. Mopé had an okay season. There's him and Connolly maybe the best options up front, but they don't score a lot of goals, Brighton, so that's definitely a worry. I'll move on to Burnley, and let's just take a look at them. Unfortunately, they also have a blank game week 1. Nick Pope, God, what a season he had last year. 15 clean sheets and a whole bunch of save points. Really, he's 5.5 million. You can't really argue with that price because he was the standout goalkeeper last season. But there's a big problem, and that's game week 1. There's a blank there, and it doesn't get any better in game week 2. Leicester away. Okay for save points maybe, but I fully expect Burnley to concede there. So it really is hard to put him into your team from the start, from the get-go, and also you don't really want to waste a transfer on a goalkeeper anytime early days unless you're playing your wild card. So I can't add Nick Pope in, and he is probably the best player you can have out of the Burnley defensive options. So like I may as well move on from Burnley. There's no one really I want to put on my watch list. I'm not curious or even semi-curious about any of them. Like Goodmunson, maybe 5.5, had an injury-stricken season. Chris Wood, maybe 6.5 is a little expensive. It's too hard. I'm just going to move on from them, and we'll see how to start the first few game weeks and maybe adjust from there. Chelsea, wow. Okay, well, look, Chelsea are still signing players right, left, and centre. So I feel like it's just you could be checking their FPL assets every couple of days and see a new player in there and a new price point and something else to consider. So in terms of the goalkeepers and defenders, nobody really interests me until I see how they line up from day one and to see how the transfer window plays out. In midfielders, there's definitely Christian Pulisic to consider. So he's going to go onto the watch list. Now, obviously, he has a hamstring injury, so he's still a doubt. We'll see if he gets any preseason game time. But he just showed what he's worth at the butt end of last season. So he has to go on there and has to be considered even at 8.5. And another player that I really like is Hakim Ziyech, just from what I saw him produce in the Champions League over the last few seasons. And it's just you got to be careful with new players, new Premier League players. Assets like Ziyech and Werner just coming in for the first time need a little bit of time to adjust to the pace of the Premier League. It can be quite frenetic and not something they'd be used to in Eredivisie or Bundesliga. So I'm going to add him to the watch list. I'm going to monitor him. I think at 8 million he could be a complete snatch this year, a real bargain. Same with Werner at 9.5. Like, he could end up exploding and just scoring week in, week out. That's yet to be seen. I do think in terms of Chelsea's fixtures, they've got a lot of green there in the first 5 game weeks. Liverpool at home in game week 2 is the little stumbling block in between. Still a big chance, still a high chance to score at Stamford Bridge against Liverpool. So I have Werner in my early wild card. My early draft. So I'm going to add him in there to my team because I do feel like he's also a good, again, another good pivot point. You can easily go with Werner. You can easily move into maybe a Martial at 9 million, or go up a step to somebody like a Vardy within 1 million. So there are options there to replace him if it doesn't go well for him in the first few game weeks. Looking at Palace then, is there anyone on Palace that I want to consider for my watch list? I guess we could just talk about the defenders because they have 2 potential 4 million starters for the season. Tyreek Mitchell, who played a little bit at the end of last season, and performed quite solidly. I'm going to add him to the watch list. It's something we have to keep an eye on in pre-season friendlies to see if any of these players look like they're going to start in their respective fullback positions. Nathan Ferguson, I believe he's a new signing from West Brom. He might come in and start. Okay, the fixtures aren't great for them, but it would be a bench player for me. So let's just put one of them in. I'm going to put in, let's just say Ferguson for the moment, as a little kind of 4 million cheapie on the bench to start filling up my defensive line. Both of them on the watch list, though, without a doubt, and something to look at for the next couple of weeks. Moving swiftly on then to Everton. I actually heard that Everton put a bid in for James Rodriguez tonight, so he would be a huge star signing for them to maybe kickstart something under the Ancelotti regime. Yet to see if that will come to fruition, but that could be a real game changer for this team as a whole, because they're just missing that little spark. That's something, especially going forward. They're very reliant on Richarlison, and they don't really have that creativity. Sigurdsson would have given it to them in the past, but I just don't see it at the moment, based on evidence of last season anyway. Moise Kean was a complete flop too. So Pickford is a little bit tempting at 5 million. If they can shore up defensively, Everton, I think Jordan Pickford could be. He had a bad season last year, and if you look at his previous 2 seasons, 161 points, which is like 9 points off Pope's total tally of 2019-2020. So he does have the potential there. He just fell off a cliff a little bit last season, and it could be a confidence thing too. I'm going to add him anyway, add him to the watch list, because he might not be a bad set and forget or rotating keeper with another 4.5 or 4 million. I'm not going to stick him into this draft, but I definitely want to keep an eye on him and see what happens there. Look, we kind of have to just check out these fixtures first before adding too many people. So yeah, okay, West Brom, Crystal Palace and Brighton at home is a good run. It's sandwiched on either side in game week 1 and game week 5 by 2 top 4 teams, or top 6 now, with Spurs and Liverpool. So kind of shaky enough start. I suppose we can add in Branthwaite. I want to see if he becomes a 4 million guy. He started at the end of last season. Kind of highly unlikely he's gonna wiggle his way into the starting lineup for game week 1, but I would like to see it. Maybe I'll stick him on my bench to fill up that second. I'm going to play probably 3-5-2 starting off, so I'm going to add him in anyway. He's definitely not going to be a starter, but we'll stick him in there anyway just to keep a place warm. Richarlison at 8 million, I suppose you could consider him. The fact that he's been repositioned to a forward now worries me, because you're losing that extra point for goal. But yeah, he's definitely the best player in this team at the moment. So one to consider maybe going forward. It's a bit of a stretch. To be honest, I'll move on from Everton. They're a bit of an unknown entity. Like they should be playing better than they are. That's the best way to put it. And maybe pre-season will give us more of a hint as to how they're going to progress as a team for this season, but I'd be hesitant to put any player in my team. Again, Branthwaite's just there as a placeholder. So I'll move on then to Fulham. This is taking a long time. I suppose it's, how long have I been on? 21 minutes. Okay, right, fair enough. I'll keep rambling on. I don't know much about Fulham. The one thing I do know is that Joe Bryan had an amazing little brace in the playoff final to bring them to the Premier League. He's 5 million, which seems a lot of money for a promoted defender, but who knows? It could be right. It could be right, and I could be just a fool for saying that. There's one player who is a proven player in the Premier League, proven goal scorer, and that's Alexander Mitrovic, and he's 6 million, which is actually 0.5 million less than what he cost. I was reliably informed. The last time he played in the Premier League, he was 6.5. Now he's 6, even though he had a very good season last year. Top scorer in the Championship. I would probably put him into my team at 6 million if I was looking for a second striker, and in fact I will. Arsenal at home is a tricky enough start. Then they've got Leeds, who are another promoted club in game week 2, and then Villa at home, who I think Villa are going to struggle this year badly. I think they're going to do pretty bad. So I'm going to put him on. the watch list, and I'm going to also stick him in my team alongside Werner up front, starting off. Let's look at the next team, which is Leeds. Again, I don't know much about Leeds, I'm afraid to say. I need to do my research here and really take a deep dive into them and where they're. If anyone has any ideas, stick them in the chat as to who I should be targeting here, who I should be watching in the opening game weeks. From my limited knowledge, I do know that Stuart Dallas likes to score a goal and is a good defensive option. I also know that Ayling is widely tipped to do well. So I'm going to add the two boys onto the watch list. We'll keep an eye on them. Up front then, Bamford Leeds fans don't sing too many praises of this guy, but they have signed somebody else today, Rodrigo from Valencia, so maybe he'll become an option. He's yet to be priced, so too early to say. Okay, next team up are Leicester. Okay, it's getting a little interesting now. So Leicester is a team I'd probably like to target in some way, shape or form. That could be Kasper Schmeichel. Very defensively solid last year, Leicester, and they have a good start. Game week 3 away at City is the only little blip, but there's a lot of green in there and good fixtures. So Kasper Schmeichel is definitely going onto the watch list. 5.5, again, yeah, it's a set and forget goalkeeper option, so you'd be pairing up a 5.5 with a 4. I'd also going to add in James Justin because of his price point at 4.5. He will start the season, and the season start openers are decent for Leicester, so I'm going to add James Justin to the watch list, and I'm also going to add him into my team here. So moving up to the forward line, I think Barnes is a good price at 7 million. Now, my only worry about Barnes is the fact that he sometimes doesn't play that many minutes. Even if he does get a start, he's liable to be pulled off after 55, 60 minutes, which is, it's not something you want in a player, especially if you're relying on them in a precious midfielder spot like we have this season. So many great midfield options this year, and you want someone who's going to play the majority of the minutes in a game. Now, saying that, he's 16 attacking returns last season, which is really good. Well, only 2,075 minutes played, so he only played roughly 2/3 of the game time, and he still has 16 attacking returns. Not bad. He's on the watch list for now. Definitely want to see starting off to see if he explodes, but I'm not so sure, not yet. Perez is a funny one. I'm not going to touch him, but it was funny last season. Ayoze Perez was repositioned to from a forward to a midfielder, and everybody seemed to have him at his price at 6 million starting off last year, and he burned a lot of people. So it just goes to show a positional change to an advantage of a player doesn't always work out well. So I'm going to be avoiding Perez for the moment, but I am going to put in James Maddison into my team. I'm going to put him straight in there. And I'm going to add him to the watch list too. He's returning from injury. He was okay last season. He is the creative force in this team, and he will play week in, week out, and that's what I want, especially when you look at the opening fixtures. He's got West Brom away and Burnley home, the first two. That is pretty tasty. And then West Ham at home and Villa at home, game week 4 and game week 5. I want a piece of this Leicester, and I want a big piece of it, so I'm going to put in Maddison. The other player I could consider is Jamie Vardy, but I'm running out of striker positions now. He's 10 million. In fairness, I might put in Vardy. I'll put him on the watch list for starters, but I might end up actually putting him into my team come game week 1. At the end of the day, 30 goals and assists last season, Golden Boot winner. If you want some goals, Jamie Vardy will provide. And maybe I'm being a little bit naive starting with Werner instead of the proven Vardy. But look, this is a very early draft, so all things can change. For the moment, Jamie Vardy's going on to the watch list. Anyone else worth mentioning here from... I suppose we can stick in Soyuncu because he's now an assured starter in the centre of defence, and he had a good season last year. I'd like to see him improve upon his attacking threat. A goal and a solitary assist probably isn't enough to back up the clean sheets with other options around. So I'm going to add him to the watch list for now, and we'll have a look. We'll consider him. Oh yeah, and Chilwell at 5.5. I don't even know. Well, he's going to Chelsea, so if he's a starter at Chelsea, he could be a little bit underpriced going into next season. Unknown return date still up there, so not sure if he'll be ready to start the season, but we'll see. Interesting to see what develops there. Now it's getting interesting. Moving on to Liverpool. So where do we want to start with Liverpool? I suppose right at the back, and the highest scoring defender of last season, who was Trent Alexander-Arnold, and his price has shifted accordingly right up to 7.5. Really, really pricey asset here, but look at his ownership at the moment, 56% owned. So everybody's literally starting off their drafts with this guy as the central figure in their defensive lineups, and I'll be no different. I'll cut to the chase here at Liverpool. They won the league last year, and they won it by some margin. They had a great defensive record. They had 14 clean sheets. Their fixtures opening up are okay. They could be better. They've Leeds at home, which is, well, it kind of reminds me of Norwich, the first game week of last season. They'll put away Leeds, no problem, I reckon. Chelsea away could be tricky. Arsenal home could be tricky. But Villa away, like, it's okay. Villa away, Everton away, 4 and 5. What I'm going to do at Liverpool is I'm going to pick their two best assets, and for me, it's Trent Alexander-Arnold. So first of all, I'm just going to add him to the team. I'll make sure he's on the watch list. And I'm going to also pick their best attacking asset. Not by much now last season, but I do think Salah is the player to have because of the fact that he is just such a great captaincy option week in, week out, against weak teams and against strong teams. So Salah's on, and he's probably going to get my captaincy. If I was going to pick a captain right now for game week 1, I wouldn't venture too far past a Liverpool player and Salah. I guess, look, Mane is the same price as Salah. I would have liked to see them make it a little interesting there and maybe put in Mane at 11.5 to vary it up a bit. But fair enough, they stuck to the 12 million figure, which makes it's one of those, you choose one and you stick with one situations, or you go for both with Salah and Mane. Same as last season. But I would have liked a little bit of a choice there, maybe a 0.5 less for Mane. Up front then, I really just can't trust Bobby Firmino. Maybe you'll have a good season this year, but for 9.5, when you have the likes of Mane and Salah in that Liverpool team, either side of him, Firmino, if Firmino shot more, instead of trying to pass it all the time to the guys to his left and his right, then maybe he'd be a better option. 9 goals, 9 assists, probably should be better for what you pay for him. Like, you could get Vardy for 0.5 million more. So why would you go for Firmino? That's all I'll say. I'm not going to add him to the watch list even. We leave him like that. Ryan Brewster's an interesting one. I'd love to see this guy get a move to another Premier League team, because it could become a real option of 4.5. I know a few teams are interested in him. Most of them are in the Championship, so there is a likelihood that he'll end up with the Championship side, and we won't see him in FPL this season. But do you know what? Just for the laugh, I'll add him onto the watch list because he could be a real enabler at 4.5. Last year we had the likes of Greenwood that really came through. Now, he actually didn't go on loan. He stuck with United, but ended up with double figures goal return at the end of the season. Started off slowly and ended and earned his place in that team. So see what Ryan Brewster does if he moves to another Premier League squad. He could be swiftly off this watch list very soon. Who knows? We'll keep an eye on the transfer window. So that's Liverpool done. I'll move on to Man City. What to say about Man City? I guess game week 1 blank is the big problem here. How do you incorporate a Man City player into your team from game week 1 onwards? Well, obviously the obvious answer is you stick them on your bench. And do you want to bench a Man City player on that value and wait to play him in game week 2? Potentially, you could. Not for me. I'm going to have to think long and hard about how I'm going to negotiate these early blanks. City play Wolves away in game week 2 and Leicester at home in game week 3. So there is a possibility I could go with no Man City player until game week 4, which would be me sweating a lot hiding behind the couch every single weekend until I got one in my team. Is that something I want to do? I don't know. De Bruyne, 11.5 million. Best player in the game for me last season. no brainer. He will be in my team at one point or another in the next few game weeks, but not for game week 1. He's on the watch list, and there's not much else anyone can say. The superlatives that have been thrown at De Bruyne have been richly deserved last season, and I think a lot of people will have him as a captain option every week, especially because he's pretty rotation proof with the Pep Roulette. And so I'm going to add him to the watch list for now. Another player who's equally priced at 11.5 million is Raheem Sterling, and only 5% owned. Well, that has to do with obviously the blanking game week 1, but he got 20 goals last season and he's a midfielder, so has to be considered. It's going to be again a choice. You either have one or the other. I feel there's so many high priced midfielders this year that I really do reckon that you're going to have to leave a lot of heavy hitters out and take a gamble and take a risk on maybe 2 or 3 of them. So a lot of big decisions you made this season. It's going to be harder than ever. I'm not going to put Mahrez on the list. For some reason, he didn't start in the Champions League, which is so real. I don't know why Pep doesn't want to play Mahrez, but he obviously doesn't trust him as much as everybody else. Phil Foden at 6.5 million played a lot towards the latter end of last season, and he performed reasonably well. He's still a young kid, and I don't know if he'll be sharing game time with the likes of Bernardo Silva and Riyad Mahrez next season. Torres, a bit of an unknown at 7 million for me. I just going to wait and see for that guy to see how he performs. But I'm not going to add Foden to the watch list, and I'm not going to add anyone else other than Sterling and De Bruyne up front. I will add Aguero in for old time's sake. Let's just say he's recovering from that operation, so I don't know how fit he's going to be for game week 1. But I do feel like he has that explosive touch. When he gets going, he's just a great differential to have, especially when he's just introducing himself back into the team and the eyes are elsewhere. Other managers are looking at different assets. Aguero can really swoop in and score heavy, and then everyone gets him. So definitely has to be watched. He's on the watch list for now. Jesus at 9.5 million. I'm going to say this now, and I think I'm probably going to be right. Aguero, when fit, will start ahead of Jesus this season. And that's just the way it's going to be until Aguero leaves Man City, because he is by far their best goal scorer and most trusted forward player. So Pep thinks the same. I reckon that's how it's going to rock. So yeah, I think I'll just leave City for the moment, because of the fact that they have a blanking game week 1. I'm not going to totally bombard this watch list with City players starting off. Same with United. I mean, I'm going to quickly go through United. The defender, Luke Shaw at 5 million could be a great little buy. I do feel like Solskjaer will play him ahead of Brandon Williams. Williams really did struggle at the end of last season. Maybe he was tired. I don't think he's fully ready to be the starter in that position in this United team, and I do think Luke Shaw will slot back in there. It remains to be seen when, hopefully from game week 1 onwards, but I'm going to add him to the watch list. I quite like Luke Shaw because of his price at 5 million in this defence for United, and they're definitely much better last season defensively. I don't know how many goals they conceded, but it was much less than previous years. 29 goals conceded, is that right? Okay, seems to be. Rashford at 9.5 million really interests me. At 8.5 as a striker, everyone was jumping on him, but now with his positional change, he gets those extra points, as we all know, and I really do like him as an option. Martial in the other direction, he's moved to 9 million and he's a forward, which makes me not like him as much. I mean, he's the same attacking return as Rashford last season, but now he's getting less points for it. So I'll add him to the watch list for sure. I'm a United fan myself, so I do like to sometimes indulge myself in some of these players. Greenwood too at 7.5 million. Again, a little bit like Williams, I'd just be worried a little bit about his game time. I do, and a little bit like Harvey Barnes too. He does seem to come off around the 65th minute mark, and if he doesn't score, he doesn't do much. I mean, obviously he's got 10 goals and he's only a kid, so I can't be too harsh on the guy. So 7.5 million could be a nice price to get into this United team in a cheap way. Definitely want to monitor, but for me it's between Rashford and Bruno. Bruno was just so consistent and ruthless last season. Plus, it looks like he's solely taking penalties now, which really makes him a standout option. Really, really does. So I'm going to add him to the watch list for now. Again, United have this blank in game week 1. It makes it so difficult this season. But usually it's so straightforward. You look at the first 5 to 10 fixtures, and you can choose a team that doesn't need any adjustment for the first 3 or 4 game weeks, and then ride with the punches. If there's injuries, suspensions, you can make changes. But now we have to factor in these 4 blank. Well, it's 2 blanks really. It's Man City and Manchester United, the 2 main teams that we're focusing on. Right, fair enough, Burnley and Villa as well, but it's more United and City that are the real problem. So Fernandes is on the watch list. Did I add him into the watch list? Let me just check. Yeah, I did. And we'll move swiftly on to, this is taking a long time, Newcastle. Okay, Newcastle have one player that I'm really interested in, and that is Alain Saint-Maximin. The reason being is 5.5 million price tag. He wasn't really that impressive last season. I mean, he reminds me of Adama Traore. He's got that real trigger pace and can do fantastic things in the field, but then he can also go missing for long periods of time. But I do like him. I think he's a great player. I'm going to add him to the watch list, and as a price point, I'm also going to add him to my team. They have a good start, Newcastle. Game week 1, game week 2. It's not too bad. So it's a calculated risk to get a player like this in. You can always keep an eye on the promoted teams. At a 5.5 million, I'm sure there's a lot of players that could come to fruition, and you could just jump straight in if Maximum doesn't do the business. But he is definitely more of a calculated risk as opposed to a promoted player. Like, for example, last season, I remember Todd Cantwell in the first 2 game weeks just really showed statistically that he was going to score really well. I think it was 4.5 million. So there's always going to be a player or two that will arise, that will become really hot property early on, and it's just a matter of like pinpointing those players. But for now, Saint Maximum is going to stay in my team. He's going to be in this draft. Okay, I don't think forwards we should be looking at Joe Linton. Didn't do it last season. 2 goals and 2 assists from their main striker is a little bit pathetic. So, well, he's okay. He does a great job, hold up play, taking people into the game. But as an FPL asset, he's not really worth considering at all. So I'll leave it. You know what? Maybe we should put in someone like Fernandes onto the watch list, because they have a decent start defensively. So maybe he could be considered a 5 million. Richie's gone now to midfield, so yeah, let's just put one defender in there. We might want to consider a defender from Newcastle. Sheffield United then. I have Ramsdale in as my starting goalkeeper. You might notice here he's kind of greyed out because I had him in before. I'll just put him back in. I'll add him to the watch list. Moved from Bournemouth, who are relegated. So I think that if the defensive line for Sheffield United are as good as they were last season, then they'll hopefully protect this guy a good bit. And he's alright, like he's a decent player. So Henderson doesn't look like he's coming back, so we're going to have to accept that. And maybe Ramsdale can do the business early on. At 5 million, I don't know, maybe Pickford's a better player at 5 million starting off, less of a risk, to see how Sheffield United pan out early on. But they have a good start. Wolves at home, and then Villa and Leeds game week 2 and game week 3. Then it gets difficult around this point here, game week 6, 7 and 8. Like, that's, to be honest, maybe I shouldn't be looking at him at all. Game week 6, 7 and 8, Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea. You could end up wanting to transfer your goalkeeper out, and that's not something you want to do. So I'll have to reconsider. I'll leave him in this draft anyway at Ramsdale, because he's a new signing, and Sheffield United were decent defensively last season. Look at our friend Lundstrom. He is now a 5.5 million midfielder. That's where he belonged from the start. So Lunny is no longer the bargain basket defender that we wanted him to be last season. So I'll leave it alone now for Sheffield United. There's no one really else I want to. It's too expensive to get any of these defenders in, especially when you're trying to fit in a Trent Alexander-Arnold into your defensive line, and at least 2 more premiums. So I'll move on from Sheffield United to Southampton. Southampton have a couple of players that interest me. McCarthy in goals at 4.5 million. Fixtures, they could hit the ground running. Southampton, Crystal Palace away in game week 1, and a lot of green in there in the first 10 game weeks. So I'll stick in Alex McCarthy as a watch list potential goalkeeper. There's plenty of ways to build your goalkeeper up. Your two goalkeepers. Strategically, you can do a 6 million paired with a bench goalkeeper. So you're looking at your Edersons and your you're really only looking at what am I trying to say? Alisson and Ederson as your two 6 millionaires, and then you just play one goalkeeper every single game week. It takes the thinking out of it and the guesswork, which is not a bad way to do it. So maybe I'll go down that route. Bednarek, I like him. I think he's going to start, and the main reason I like him is because he's 4.5 million. I'm going to add him to the watch list and maybe take a little gamble on him from game week 1 onwards. I'm going to stick him in for the moment as my 4.5 placeholder till I figure out this. Walker Peters is widely tipped to start this season. I'm going to add him to the watch list. You might be asking, why am I adding all these defenders from Southampton? They're no brick wall when it comes to defense, but I just do like the start that they have, and to be honest, it'll be a rotating 4.5, so playing 1 week, maybe benching the next. Ward-Prowse and Redmond, a little bit out of my price league for Armstrong's a good one, 5.5 million. He finished very strongly last season. 5 goals, 4 assists is not bad. I mean, that's better than say Maximum for the same price. So definitely have to add him to the watch list and consider him. Will he play every week? Probably not. I mean, look at his minutes last season. I do believe he had an injury as well, so that could play it into it. Danny Ings definitely has to go on the watch list. I know he's got his hike to 8.5 million, but definitely interests me. 22 goals last season, prolific, scores every week. But the problem is, he only he scores a goal and he gets 3 bonus points, typical. But is he a captaincy option? And I used to say that as well for Jimenez. Well, I guess he doesn't have to be a captaincy option at 8.5 million, right? So he's definitely worth considering when you look at those fixtures. Really is, plain and simply. On the watch list for now, I really have to think about my defensive lineup. Look, Danny Ings instead of Werner saves me $1 million, and would kind of allow for an upgrade. Look at the likes of Son there. I haven't put Son in, but he's going in. Gave it away. The Son could be upgraded to Rashford at 9.5 with that extra $1 million. The likes of Maddison could be upgraded to a Ziyech at 8 million if he comes into form and hits the ground running. There's a lot you can do with $1 million in the bank. So yeah, I really have to think about this. For the first draft, anyway, Timo Werner's going to stay. I watched a lot of Bundesliga at the end of last season, as a lot of us did during lockdown. The first league to restart, really. And Werner did look like a real force up there for Leipzig. So I'm going to stick with him for the moment, and we'll move on. Did I add Ings to the watch list? Let me just go back and see. Yeah, I did. Okay. So Danny Ings is on the watch list. Potential game week 1 starter for me for sure. Spurs, I jumped the gun a little bit with Son. He is in my team for the first draft. He's got a serious goal contribution record. 24 he got last season, and that's under a Mourinho team for half of it. Less minutes than a lot of players, 2,478, so played maybe 75% of the game time. He's up from his previous 2 seasons, so 20 goal contributions in 2018-19 and 20 goal contributions in 2017-2018. So the trend is definitely for Heung-min Son, as long as he continues to play off Harry Kane, sometimes pushed out a little wide on the left, too much for my liking. But I think just for Tottenham's fixtures alone, like, they are top of the FDR ratings in terms of favourable fixtures for me. So I definitely have to have at least one of their assets going into game week 1. I know it's Jose Mourinho, and I know they're not the same flowing attacking force of previous seasons, but they're still a very, very tough squad to beat and full of stars, really. I'm going to add in, I can't really add in Aurier because there's talk he's going to leave. It's very hard in defence to choose someone who's going to be a starter for this Spurs team, as good as their openers are. Maybe Davies. I suppose Davies was favoured last season. Any suggestions, guys? Stick it in the chat. I don't know. Maybe... no, Tanganga's 5 million, so maybe he is going to start. It's hard to know. I'm going to leave the fence alone for the moment, and maybe revisit. I always like to go for wingers instead of centre defenders, so I'm kind of ignoring Alderweireld for that reason. Midfielders, Son's already on the watch list. I'll put on Ali too, because he's $1 million cheaper, so maybe I'll need to squeeze some funds and I can go for him instead. Harry Kane, I mean, I kind of rid him off. I wrote him off last season, and he finished strong. So there's a decline there. Look, a declining trend. He's not scoring on the same level as previous seasons, but then he's been injured, so you can't complain too much. At 10.5, a little too expensive, but because of the name, I'm adding him to the watch list. Right. So where am I? I've got one spot to fill, and I've done Spurs, West Brom. Again, I have to be pure honest. I don't know much about them. I really don't know. I don't know much about their players. I didn't watch many of their games last season. So I'm not going to dwell too long on them. I need to do some research here and maybe consider a few. Probably not. As a promoted team and an unknown, I'll probably avoid. But that's not to say that maybe next week I'll jump on and figure out something. I think this guy was called up for the English squad. Yeah. Was he? No, not Matt Phillips. Somebody was from this team. Anyway. Alright, I'll move on to West Ham and stop rambling. West Ham. Is there anyone from West Ham that I'd like to consider? I suppose Antonio needs to be talked about. The challenge that you have is that he's now a forward, but he's still a good, valuable, like a cheap value pick at 6.5 million. And if he continues the way he left off last season, he could be well worth all of that 6.5. I'll add him to the watch list. The fixtures though. What am I doing? No, I'm not going to add him to the watch list. He's coming straight back off. I'm not going to get a striker for West Ham. Look at all those reds. That's yeah, I shouldn't be thinking about Antonio. So let's just remove him right now. But one guy who could be a good placeholder for a 5 million midfield fifth option is Soucek, depending on what formation you're going to go for. I think he scored today in pre-season. 3 goals in a limited amount of appearances at the end of last season too. So 5 million midfielder. If he can continue to kind of get himself on the goal scoring sheet more often, then he's definitely one for maybe your bench place for your midfielder every week. One to maybe monitor. So I'll stick Soucek on the watch list, and I'll move on to Wolves. For Wolves, there is a lot of transfer speculation about Matt Doherty. He's 6 million in the game. One of those real gem defenders who just, like, he's so many touches inside the opponent's box. It's unreal. Lots of goal scoring opportunities every time he starts. But he might be going to Chelsea. He might be going to Spurs, apparently. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen there. I still have to add him to the watch list, though. Okay, a difficult start in game week 1, game week 2, but then a real nice run from game week 3 onwards for Wolves. They're getting their rest now after a busy European campaign too. So Doherty goes on the watch list. I'm going to add in Bowley's at 5.5 million. I don't really think he can go there when Vinagre is 4.5. Now, caveat to this, I'll add Vinagre in, but I do know that there is talk of Ainsley Maitland-Niles of Arsenal joining Wolves, who could threaten some of these wing-back positions. So anyway, I'll stick him on the watch list for now, and we'll monitor that one going forward. Traore at 6.5 million. I can't do it. I can't do it because he's not guaranteed to start, and that kind of fact was proven towards the butt end of last season. Jimenez 8.5 now. He has to go on the watch list. He's just way too consistent, and 8.5 might not end up being too expensive this season. When he was 7.5 last season, we all kind of shook our heads and thought that's that one gone, and we were wrong because he proved to be just a real reliable asset week in, week out. And again, I just had to point that run out from game week 3 onwards. It's really nice. So we'll have a look at him. Right, okay, so where does that leave us? It leaves us with this last little spot to fill for the 4.5 non-starting defender. I could put Ryan Brewster in there, but that would be silly because we really don't know where he's going to end up. I'm going to put Keelan Davis in for Villa. Not going to play every week, but I'm not going to play him either. I don't like my style of play. I don't like putting a lot of money on the bench. I need to limit my bench to the minimum spend and have some possible starters on there. That's all I want, especially for the start of the season when you kind of know the starting 11. You can eventually figure it out that you can get assured starters in early because most players are back and they're fully fit and ready to go. So you see strongest starting 11s appearing. So that leaves me 1 million in the bank. So let me just sleep on it for a few nights and see how I feel about this team. If I complete the transfers, it was the same team as last time. So I'll go into my team and see how we set up. We're going to. This is very slow. Come on, there we go. Ramsdale as the starter. Trent, Bednarek, and Justin in my cheap enough defense. Trent is the real only expensive luxury right there. And then I like the balance in midfield. I'm covering the Leicester fixtures with Maddison, even though I'd probably prefer to have Vardy. Say maximum just purely based on value at 5.5 million and a lovely fixture run for Newcastle starting off. Son, because of the obvious with Spurs fixtures and the fact that he is out of position midfielder and is proven. Salah, because he's probably the best captaincy option for game week 1 and game week 2 next to Aubameyang, who is also in my team as my vice captain, playing a promoted side first week, and then West Ham at home, who leaked a lot of goals last year. So there is a chance that those device and captaincy could be flipped from game week 1 to game week 2. Werner then is a little bit punty. I mean, a lot of players are thinking the same way as me. He's 38.8% owned at the moment, so it's not as if it's a complete punt. It's justified based on the quality and caliber of a player he is, and he's coming from a good competitive European league in the Bundesliga. So I'm happy to have him in there. Brighton away starting off, and a lot of nice fixtures. West Brom, Crystal Palace, game week 3, game week 4. And then Mitrovic, again, value pick. I think he's underpriced at 6 million, and we'll see his ownership rise. He's also on penalties, and a decent start for Fulham too. Don't have huge confidence in him this season, doing really well. Maybe mid-bottom table, 13th, 14th would be a great season for Fulham to kind of re-cement their place in the Premier League once more. On the bench then, Muck. Not much going on here. Ferguson might not even start, but he's 4 million. He could be switched for Tyreek Mitchell if it turns out that he is the favourable Roy Hodgson fullback for the start of the season. A lot of injuries in the back for Crystal Palace, so it remains to be seen what happens there. Don't think Branthwaite's going to start the season. He's in there for the moment anyway. I'll see what happens. But he's in there just to save that $1 million. Not going to be starting anyway. Nyland in goals because he'll probably be a playing keeper. 4 million, unless Tom Heaton's injured, unless someone else is signed for Villa, he could be a starter. So there is a chance you'd use him in a very easy game at a home Villa game throughout the season. And also, if your main goalkeeper gets injured and is left out, then you just have a direct playable replacement. So it's really great to have a 4 million keeper on your bench that starts every week. Keelan Davis then is just really to fill up the numbers. 4.5 million. I could have chosen Ryan Brewster in that position. It really is just to fit a bench in that's as cheap as possible for the openers. That's pretty much it. He's not even on my watch list. Look at that. Oh, okay. There he is. All right, so let's have a look at the watch list. So let me go back into transfers. Sorry for all this flicking up and down. I don't want to make anyone ill watching. So watch list, we have a decent chunk of players. There's 48 actually. There's way too much. I'll have to narrow that down over the next few weeks. Schmeichel, Ramsdale, Pickford and McCarthy as possible goalkeepers to start off with. Defensively, Doherty, Soyuncu, Fernandez, Alexander-Arnold. I obviously didn't add where's Justin? I have to go to the next page to see Justin. Midfielders: De Bruyne, Salah, Aubameyang, Sterling, Rashford, Grealish, Barnes, Pulisic, Maddison, Fernandez, Ali, Trossard, Greenwood, Armstrong, St. Maximum. So as you can see, there's a lot of midfield options this year. So we'll have to keep a keen eye out. A lot of forward options too, but just not as appealing as the midfielders. Vardy, Martial, Ings, Jimenez, Carlson, Kane, Aguero, and Davis, Werner, Mitrovic, Brewster. This is a huge watch list. I'm going to narrow it down next week. I'll have more knowledge. I'll add a few, remove a few, and maybe post a new draft. Should also probably mention the mini code that I've the mini league code that's below on the screen there for this. I'm pointing the finger the wrong way. There you go. It's down there, right there. B27UPD. So I'm giving away a prize this year again. It's one Litecoin. Litecoin's a cryptocurrency, so a good prize for the winner. An Irishman won it last year, Chris O'Donnell. 2,000 people in the league last year. It's ever growing, so get involved, and you can actually go onto my Twitter page at FPL Crypto, and I've pinned a tweet with the league code there, so you can go ahead and click on the auto join link if you'd like to. It's a free entry, so nothing to lose. Click on the auto join link below this tweet, this one here, and it will take you straight to the FPL website, and you can join the league that way. There's also a game on Super Brew that I played last year. It's a Premier League predictor game. So basically, every round of fixtures, you try and guess the score for the 10 games in that week. Looks a bit like this here. So you enter your score every week. I'm going to give away a small cryptocurrency prize for the winner of that too. So there's 17 entrants. There was over 100 entrants last year. There's an auto join link pinned on my profile page on Twitter for that too. So you can click on it there to join up and get your predictions in for game week 1. That's it. I suppose I'll have a look at the chat and see what any questions in here. By the way, I'm totally new to this streaming system, so any suggestions you guys have for improvement, if you can't read what I'm doing on the screen, I don't know if my mouse is even showing up when I'm hovering over players on the FPL website, but please do let me know if it's a little bit wonky for you, and I'll try and fix it for the next one. Mule, hello bro, we really missing you. Last year's disappearance after the middle of the season. Hope you keep in touch during this year till the end. Help us. Okay, I really will try. It's time constraints and life getting in the way. It's just not easy to stay on top of all this FPL streaming. It can take 8 hours of your week just to put up a video. So that's probably it's no excuse. I committed for the season last year and I kind of dropped out after game week 20. But I did continue on Twitter to post my team updates as much as I can, and I will make a commitment this year to either put out a stream or post my transfers on Twitter for you all to see. I'm quite open and transparent about what I'm doing with my team. I'm not really hiding behind anything. I've nothing to hide. So if you guys want to just keep abreast of what I'm doing, then follow me on Twitter at FPL Crypto, or hit the subscribe button and look out for my streams before the deadline every week. Some people posting up their drafts. Ryan O'Brien. This is my current draft. Carthy, Tierney, Aurier, Justin, Salah, Oba, Son, Pereira, Werner, Jimenez, and Mitrovic. I do like that forward line, Werner, Jimenez, and Mitrovic. It's quite nice. Salah and Oba. That's a good draft. You've got a lot of premiums in there. I assume that Pereira is your bench fodder. Yeah, I like it. I do like it. Tierney and Aurier, two very attacking fullbacks, wingbacks really. Yeah, a lot of potential there, Ryan. It looks really good. Oba and Tierney to De Bruyne and Doherty in game week 3, Ryan says too. So that's looks like a good team, good plan there ahead. Just keep an eye on the transfers. The likes of Aurier might not be in the game in a week's time. But yeah, I can't really argue with much of that. It's really good, Ryan. And FPL Penguin, great to see you back. Well, I am delighted to be back. I just hope that this stream wasn't a complete disaster and that I made sense and wasn't rambling too much. I'm out of practice. That's the problem. But I really enjoyed it. So nice one. I'll do more going forward, definitely. I'll probably leave it at that, guys. I've been going on for the last hour now. I'll just leave this with a few parting words on my team, and my parting words are that it will not be the same team next week. I can guarantee that. There's just too many drafts going on at the moment. There's no way that it's going to stay the same. Too many thoughts whizzing around my head. A lot of things to consider for game week 2. I mean, the game really starts in game week 2. When you look at how good Man United assets were at the end of last season, and you look at how good Man City assets always are year on year, then you're going to have to incorporate at least 3 of those players, 3 players across the 2 teams at least for the season. So if you're picking for the season in game week 1, you probably have 2 or 3 Man United or Man City assets on your bench. So it's just a strange setup for this year, and it's a little extra challenge that we didn't see coming, to have a blank in game week 1. The wild card 2 is game week 16 you have to use it by, so it's earlier this year for sure. There will be a lot of people, me included, very tempted to use the early wild card. So hit the trigger, hit the button on game week 3 or 4. I think between game week 4 and game week 5, there's an international break and a 2-week gap. So that could be a really opportune time to hit the wild card if you wanted to do it early and rejig your team to shore up the gap in Man City, Man United players starting off. Anything else really to talk about? I mean, I can't wait for the game to start. It's still 2 weeks left. Extended transfer window, which means I think it's into the middle of October where we can still see players signing for our Premier League teams and players leaving at the same time. So that is another problem that we'll have to juggle this year that didn't exist before. Maybe I'll touch upon, I don't like to toot my horn too much, but I had a really good season last year. I finished, as you can see just below here, 1,840th. After I kept my free hit chip for game week 38, and I executed it really well and got a lot of points. So I was very happy with my strong finish last season. And I'm trying to milk it as much as possible before the new season begins. But you're only as good as your previous rank. So it's all, everyone starting great leveler game week 1. We're all starting from the same base, and it's anyone's game for next year. So I'll leave it with that, and happy tinkering with your teams, guys and girls, and I'll catch up with you all maybe on the next stream later on this week or early next week. Take care.